Exactly 1 week ago today, Joe Biden told a reporter what he wants his legacy to be.
Mr. President, what do you want your legacy for Gen Z to be?
Cure the economy.
Yesterday, the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell over 1,000 points. The NASDAQ cratered by nearly 3.5%, and the S&P 500 suffered its worst day in 2 years, following its worst start to any month in 22 years. Financial analysts were shocked. Political analysts were not. I'm not great at interpreting market reports, but I know how to interpret Joe Biden. Whatever he says, assume the opposite. That much is clear. What's not clear is who exactly we're supposed to blame. That is the strangest part of the economic turmoil, the looming war in the Middle East, the social disorder at home, etc. Ordinarily, we would blame the president. But no one really considers Biden to be the president anymore. I would blame Kamala Harris. She's the VP after all. She's the nominee in 2024. But she doesn't really seem to do much at the White House. So who is it? This is perhaps the distinguishing feature of the Biden-Harris administration. Our leaders are so cartoonishly incompetent. It is not even clear who to blame for their failures. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. Kamala Harris has reportedly settled on her running mate. We have the name. We have the info. We know what it means. And we'll get to that in one moment. First, though, DailyWire Plus members have unlimited access to our uncensored ad-free daily shows, real-time breaking news, and investigative journalism. Join us in the fight right now at dailywire.com/subscribe. Also, folks, we want to restore some balance to our political order, to the global order. You got to check out Balance of Nature. Go to balanceofnature.com, use promo code Knowles. Balance of Nature, fruits and veggies, is the most convenient way to get whole fruits and vegetables daily. Balance of Nature takes fruits and vegetables, they freeze dry them, turn them into a powder, and then put them into a capsule. Balance of Nature is just one ingredient of a balanced lifestyle, has no intention to replace a healthy diet, exercise, sleep, or any other healthy habits. It is intended to be used in concert with other healthy habits. A great healthy habit you can get into is ordering your Balance of Nature. Make sure it goes to your house rather than the office so that the jackals and hyenas that you work with, like I have here on the production team, don't steal all your Balance of Nature. Make sure it goes home. And then it's great. You're on the road. Sometimes you're not always thinking about, did I get all my fruits and veggies today? Makes it really, really simple. Go to balanceofnature.com. Use promo code Knowles, K-N-W-L-E-S, for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer. Plus, get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That is balanceofnature.com, promo code Knowles. Balanceofnature.com, promo code Knowles. Why did the stock market get creamed yesterday? Ostensibly, it was because of a weak jobs report. So there was this jobs report that came out on Friday that fell way short of expectations. Employers added only 114,000 jobs in July. Economists were expecting something like 175,000 jobs, so that's a huge underperformance. On top of that, wage growth measured by average hourly earnings continued to decelerate. This is the weakest annual rate in 3 years, more than 3 years. There was another report that came out earlier this week that showed job openings fell in June to the second lowest level since March of 2021, 3 years ago. All of this taken together is a sign, multiple signs of recession. I'm not terribly surprised by this, in part because Biden said the economy was doing great, so I knew that the opposite would be true, but also because it just seemed like the market was not reflecting the fundamentals of the economy. The fundamentals of the economy seem kind of weak right now. And eventually, reality will reassert itself. Really, it should be a really tough moment for the Democrats to deal with this. You know, the Democrats are the incumbent party. Joe Biden is the incumbent president. And yet, there's this weird situation where Do we really blame Biden? We do in the sense that he's a total failed president, but does anyone think he's even awake right now? Probably not. He's not running for re-election. I don't even care to blame Joe Biden. It's politically irrelevant to me if we blame Joe Biden. In a way, it's kind of bad if we blame Joe Biden, because if we direct all of our ire at Joe Biden, we're going to take our ire off of Kamala Harris, and then maybe she'll skate into the White House. And then the question is, do you blame Kamala Harris? She's the VP, right? She's the second in command, but nobody thinks she's doing anything at the White House. The couple of tasks she's been assigned as vice president, she's completely ignored. Being the border czar, she didn't have anything to do with it. Anything she was put in charge of. Getting rural Americans connected to high-speed internet. Remember when Joe Biden in 2021 gave her that task at the State of the Union? She didn't do that. She didn't connect one single American to high-speed internet. And so you can say, okay, she's negligent, she's incompetent, sure, but do you blame her? I don't know. I just don't know who's in charge. This has never happened before, certainly in my lifetime. I think probably for many lifetimes. Things are failing, and yet we can't really point to someone in the government and say, it's you, you're the problem. On top of this, compounding these problems, we're waiting to see if there's going to be the outbreak of a major war in the Middle East between Iran and Israel. Joe Biden was asked about this. He was walking out of, I don't know, is it a supermarket or something? He was walking out of some shop. A passerby with a handheld camera said, "Hey, Mr. President, what's going on with Iran and Israel?" And here is the pathetic answer from the commander-in-chief.
President, do you think Iran will stand down? Do you think Iran will stand down, sir?
I hope so.
What? I hope so. I don't know. Mr. President, you know that major regional war that, who knows, could spark a world war? Can you answer a question about that? Huh? What? Iran? What's what? Huh? What? Iran. There's a country called Iran. It used to be called Persia. And there's this other country called Israel. It's that state in the Holy Land, and they might have a war. Do you think Iran is going to back off? And the best our commander-in-chief can offer is, I hope so. I don't know. What are you asking me for? I'm not the president. Come on, man. Come on, Jack. What are you talking to me for? Nobody seriously believes that I am actively running the country right now. Beats me, man. I don't know. Tune into cable news. Turn on a podcast. Figure out what's going to happen over there. Cool. Then there was a picture that was released by the White House, by the Joe Biden Twitter account, which Joe Biden himself obviously has nothing to do with. And it's Biden sitting, very official, in the Situation Room. He's flanked by Lloyd Austin, Kamala Harris, Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State, a bunch of other people. He's looking really dialed in. He's speaking to the Secretary of State. Quite a contrast from the pictures of him leaving some market with a bouquet of flowers, not appearing to know what Iran is. He's there, he's dialed in, right? And he releases this statement. Earlier, the Vice President and I were briefed in the Situation Room on developments in the Middle East. We received updates on threats posed by Iran and its proxies, diplomatic efforts to de-escalate, and blah, 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 blah. I have one question about that photo. When was it even taken? Maybe that photo was taken yesterday. Could have been. I'm not saying it wasn't. But that photo doesn't reflect the reality of this White House. We all saw Biden at the debate. We've all seen Biden for years now. We just saw Biden in that clip. Huh? What? Iran? What's going on in Iran? I don't know. Beats me. I hope it's okay. Nobody seriously believes that this guy is actively managing potentially an outbreak of a regional war from the Situation Room, the nerve center of the global empire. Nobody believes that for a second. Was that photo even taken yesterday? I don't know. So in that photo, Biden is seen speaking to Secretary of State Antony Blinken. The purpose of this photo, whenever the White House releases a photo, whenever the news media editors choose a photo, it is intended to convey important information to you. They're pretty good at this, the libs, okay? And so there's a propaganda purpose to this. What is the White House trying to convey? I think implicitly they're saying, look, even if you don't have a lot of confidence in Biden right now, he's talking to Tony Blinken. Tony Blinken's in charge. The Secretary of State, he's managing this, the diplomatic efforts to de-escalate. Okay, well, what is Blinken saying? Blinken's quote, the Secretary of State's quote, as we are facing down a major war in the Middle East, all parties must take steps to ease tensions. This is what he told reporters yesterday. It is urgent that all parties make the right choices in the hours and days ahead. Okay. So the Secretary of State, in the absence of a functional president, in the absence of a competent vice president, the Secretary of State is taking the, hey boys, settle down back there approach to foreign policy. The, all right, enough already. You got till the count of 3, pipe down approach to grand strategy. That'll probably work, right? Does that inspire confidence in you? All parties need to make good choices. Oh, well, okay. Okay, Mr. Secretary of State, okay. You understand that, Ayatollah? Yes, no, I understand. I have to be good boy and make right choice in days ahead. Okay. Yeah, that's going to work. That's going to work, right? So what does this mean for us? Tony Blinken actually explains. He says, of course, we prepare for the possibility of further conflict. We don't think conflict is inevitable or should be inevitable, or that increased conflict is inevitable. We're going to continue to work to try to prevent it from happening, but of course, we prepare for all possibilities. We are preparing. Why are we preparing? We are preparing because if a major war kicks off in the Middle East, the first thing Americans are thinking is we do not want to be involved in this. And I'm just here to tell you, I hate to burst your bubble, we inevitably are going to be involved. Might not help you sleep easy at night. Well, one way you can sleep easy at night is to check out Helix Sleep. Go to helixsleep.com/Knowles. I have a terrible confession to make. For the past few nights, I have not slept on a Helix mattress. You might be able to hear I'm just a touch under the weather. I am in a self-imposed banishment to the guest room. I miss my bed, folks. I miss my bed, okay? I love Helix mattress. My son, when he moved out of his crib and into his first big boy bed, he sleeps on a Helix mattress. I love it. Helix Sleep has a quiz that takes just 2 minutes to complete, matches your body type and sleep preference to the perfect mattress for you. Why would you buy a mattress made for someone else? With Helix, you're getting a mattress that you know will be perfect for the way you sleep. And then you can sleep like I do. You know, you can wake up all nice and rested when I'm not being banished to the guest room where I should just get another Helix mattress for that anyway. Helix has several different mattress models to choose from. Soft, medium, firm mattresses. Mattress is great for cooling you down if you sleep hot. Great for spinal alignment to prevent morning aches and pains. It's just great. Right now, Helix is offering 20% off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners. Go to helixsleep.com/Knowles. helixsleep.com/Knowles. This is their best offer yet. It won't last long. With Helix, better sleep starts now. From the American perspective, vis-a-vis foreign policy, the worst news we got yesterday was that 2 rockets hit a U.S. base in Iraq. Several U.S. service members, I'm sorry to report, were injured in an attack on Al-Assad Air Base in western Iraq. And so as everyone's looking at the Middle East, a lot of people don't really care that much about Israel. They don't really care about Iran. They don't care about conflicts that have been going on for a very long time that don't seem to directly involve the U.S. They just are saying, please don't let us get dragged into this. And I share your feeling. I totally agree. I really don't want to get dragged into this. And I can promise you with 100% certainty, if a major war kicks off in the Middle East, we will be dragged in. We will be involved. Why? Because everybody knows the U.S. is not going to ditch Israel. It's just not going to happen. I don't care how many campus protests there are. I don't care how serious the intifada gets on the left. I don't care how many people don't like Israel on the right. It's just a fact of U.S. foreign policy. The U.S. is going to back Israel. Whether we want to or not, we're just going to do it. And part of the reason we're going to do it is not just because of the particularity of the state of Israel. It's because the U.S. is the global empire. That's why. We're the global empire. We're involved in Ukraine. Why are we? We are one of the two major belligerents in the Ukraine war. Why? Why do we care that much about Ukraine? We do have a fairly long-standing alliance with the state of Israel. We don't have nearly as durable an alliance with Ukraine. Why are we? Because we're the global empire. That's why. And when major conflicts kick off anywhere on earth, we just are involved. And you might say, well, I don't want to be the global empire. Sure, but we just are. I remember when I used to almost pull my hair out over this. I said, why can't we just behave like a normal nation? Why is it that we have to be involved everywhere? Why do we want to become like an empire? And I realized, we have something called AFRICOM. The American military is just all over the entire world. We have CENTCOM, we have AFRICOM, we have all these. I thought, an isolated nation state of yeoman farmers doesn't have something called AFRICOM. Okay, we don't have just a command center for an entire continent. Okay, we don't, because we're the global empire. So that's why we're paying attention. That's why Tony Blinken says we want to de-escalate. We're preparing for conflict. It's awful. I hope that the war doesn't kick off. We're recording this show right now at 8:30 in the morning Central Time. As I'm speaking, the war might be kicking off. I was refreshing the news last night as I was writing my show at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night, because it seemed inevitable. And what would the war be in response to? It would be in response to the state of Israel killing the head of Hamas in Tehran, the head of Hamas who was attending the turnover of power there after the president of Iran was killed in a helicopter crash. And why did Israel go kill the head of Hamas? Israel killed the head of Hamas because Hamas attacked the state of Israel on October 7th of last year. And it just seems like this is all building up for some kind of war. And we're the empire, so we're going to have to be involved in it some way or another. Now, speaking of our global empire, who will be the number two should Kamala Harris become president in November? There was a big debate. Also, speaking of the Jews, there was a big debate. Was it going to be the governor of Minnesota, Governor Walz, or was it going to be the governor of Pennsylvania, Governor Shapiro? Now, Walz was the leftist. Shapiro's left-wing too, but Walz is a real radical leftist. Former public school teacher, supports abortion up until birth, supports kids, real lib. He is the governor of the largest Somali population in the United States. So that actually does bring in a little bit of that Middle Eastern conflict. It brings in a little bit of some geopolitics here. Or is it Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania, who is also radically pro-abortion, but he's got some more moderate political views. He's pro-school choice, relatively pro-cop. As I said yesterday on the show, Kamala Harris is in this odd position of being at once extremely radical, the most left-wing senator when she was in the Senate, and also extremely establishment. She's an empty suit who will adopt any position that suits her. Kamala Harris, who raises money to bail violent rioters out of prison. Kamala Harris, who portrays herself as a cop, who mocks the idea of abolishing prisons or of building schools instead of prisons. What is she? She's just this establishment empty suit on the one hand. Also, she's the child of a Marxist professor who's to the left of Bernie Sanders in the Senate. Which one are we going to get? These two VP possibilities, I felt, were the signal of which way she's going to go. Because Walz is Kamala leaning into her radical leftism. Shapiro is Kamala leaning more into her establishment Democrat cred. Now, there was a problem for Shapiro, which does tie into his last name. And that is right now, the Democrats in particular are not such fans of a certain ancient nomadic tribe. Democrats have had an uprising against the state of Israel and the Jews for some months now. And Shapiro is a Jew, and he's quite pro-Israel. Here's Shapiro leaning in to the pro-Israel side on CNN some months ago.
I think several of these university leaders across the country are just simply losing control of the situation. They have a responsibility to keep students safe. Students shouldn't be blocked from going to campus just because they're Jewish, or learning in a classroom as opposed to being forced online because they're Jewish. It is simply unacceptable. And you know what? We have to query whether or not we would tolerate this. If this were people dressed up in KKK outfits or KKK regalia, making comments about people who are African American in our communities. I'm certainly not condoning that, Jake, by any stretch. But I think we have to be careful about setting any kind of double standard here on our campuses. We got to call it out for what it is, and these university leaders have to make sure there is order on their campuses.
So that was going to really hurt him among the activist Democrat base. The fact that he's anti-Palestine liberation protests, the fact that he's a little bit more moderate probably would endear him to some swing state voters, some more moderates, some centrists, but it would really hurt him among that Democrat base, which is embrace the intifada. So which one are we getting? According to reports, it's not official as we're broadcasting, but according to reports, Kamala is going with Tim Walz of Minnesota. According to the reports, Kamala is leaning into her leftism. Now, it is a little weird because yesterday we got a report from the mayor of Philadelphia, Philly Mayor Sherelle Parker, who said, proud to be back with so many leaders from across our region supporting Kamala Harris for president and Josh Shapiro for vice president. We're one city, one region, one Commonwealth united. And then she tags all of the Democrat accounts. I said, oh, is she leaking some information? Does she know something that we don't? Then a colleague of mine pointed out yesterday, said, what does the mayor of Philly know about anything? You think she's in the room deciding who the VP is? Probably not. So Kamala, if the reports are true, this is being widely reported, Associated Press, everywhere. If the reports are true, it really is Tim Walz. Then Kamala is leaning into radicalism. She's saying, look, the Democrat base hates Jews in the state of Israel more than they are inclined to win Pennsylvania, which is a must-win swing state. The Democrat base is going to decide this election. They're already planning the pro-Palestine protests at the DNC in August, and we're gonna lean left, baby. Let's go. And she's a radical, man. Kamala this is her true colors. She was raised by a Marxist, like by an actual avowed Marxist professor. You want to know the real Kamala? Here's the real Kamala in about 20 seconds.
You know, we have to stay woke. Like, everybody needs to be woke. And you can talk about if you're the wokest or woker, but just stay more woke than less woke. Yeah.
We got to be woke. We got to do it. We got to be woke, woke, woke. She can't even elaborate on that. She can't even elaborate on woke means, but she knows we got to be it. This should be a Republican TV commercial. I don't really like the word woke because I think it's a little bit of an ambiguous phrase. And I think people use that phrase because they want to try to preserve liberalism while distinguishing liberalism from the extremes of liberalism. But I think wokeness is just the apotheosis of liberalism. I think it's just the culmination of liberal premises. So I don't think it's anything out of the ordinary exactly. This is where liberalism leads you. But especially for boomers, especially for voters of a certain age, maybe over the age of 50, who, especially for people who are just kind of, going about their daily lives, they're not totally plugged into all the minutiae of politics. I think that's a very effective message. Woke is very unpopular. People have a sense of what that word means, even if they can't precisely define it. They don't like it. You put Kamala on TV. Kamala has the positions and the inclinations of a radical ideologue combined with the ignorance of an establishment striver. She can't even elaborate on what woke means, but she knows she's for it, baby. That is a great TV commercial, and that's an accurate representation of what Kamala Harris wants and believes. Now, we want to preserve our country. First, though, I'm going to help you with a more modest endeavor. We're going to preserve your cigars. We are going to preserve your cigars with the brand new Mayflower Cigar Travel Humidor. There has never been a better way to store your premium handmade cigars while traveling. I have had many versions of this type of humidor over the years, and I've had many versions of it because I want different sizes. Sometimes I have a different size bag, and because they work so well. This is the best one I've ever seen. We had this made. It took many months to make this. It's got this nice little handy carry handle, and so you can walk around with it. You can throw it in your suitcase, your briefcase, your backpack. It's got the lovely Mayflower cigar. It's very subtle, very subtle design here. You might even not be able to see it on camera. Nice logo in the black right there on the case. Handy. One pull action. Open up the humidor. Nice foam here to protect your cigars. No matter, this thing could get thrown. When you check your bag on an airplane, your cigars are going to be perfectly safe. It's going to preserve that humidity perfectly and keep your cigars ready to smoke for many months to come. Kamala is woke. Now, what Kamala is pretty good at is avoiding details. So she can appeal to establishment types because she's an empty suit, but she can appeal to the radicals because she's making gestures toward radical things, like choosing Tim Walz as her running mate, if that report is in fact true. Sometimes, though, she does come out and embrace specific positions. Dave McCormick, who's running for Senate in Pennsylvania, Dave McCormick just found this great little clip. Kamala, when she was running for president in 2020, endorsed a specific policy that's going to be really unpopular in the Rust Belt states and those swing states. She wants to destroy fracking.
This country's got a whole lot of hot button issues that we could touch on. But what's the first thing we need to do to give us all some relief?
Well, let me start by saying this. Climate change is the single greatest threat facing our world today. That's why I am committed to passing a Green New Deal, creating clean jobs, and finally putting an end to fracking once and for all.
Mama Kamala just don't give a frack.
He got her on the record to embrace totally destroying fracking. Just clip that out. The RNC has actually done a pretty good job of finding clips of Kamala. Whoever's running RNC research on X is doing a bang-up job and deserves a raise. Really, really good stuff. That's a great clip. Give me that clip. Break that. You don't need anything else on that clip. It could be a 30-second TV ad and, more importantly, Google ad, Facebook ad, social media ad. But also put that on TV for sure. And then at the very end say, I'm Donald Trump. This is Kamala Harris. I approve this message. That's all you need. Put her in her own words. We're going to put an end to fracking once and for all. Climate change is the most dangerous, dreadful threat that we face, and I'm going to totally end fracking. I'm going to take away all your jobs. I'm going to dramatically raise the cost of energy while the economy is teetering and a major war in the Middle East looms, and the price of oil could go through the roof. And I'm going to ignore the actual threats you face, economic threats, threats from across the border, drug threats, crime threats. I'm going to say it's the sun monster is the biggest threat. And oh, by the way, did I tell you I'm going to take your job and raise your energy prices? Perfect TV ad. Love that. This is radicalism. And it's not just Kamala. Jamie Raskin, Democrat member of Congress, just got caught. Charlie Kirk posted this clip around. He was asked what would happen if Trump did manage to win. So, November comes and goes, Trump wins. Now these members of Congress have to ratify the election. It's January 6th, 2025. What happens?
What can be put into the Constitution can slip away from you very quickly. And the greatest example going on right now before our very eyes is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which they're just disappearing with a magic wand, as if it doesn't exist, even though it could not be clearer what it's stating. And so, they want to kick it to Congress. So it's going to be up to us on January 6, 2025, to tell the rampaging Trump mobs that he's disqualified. And then we need bodyguards for everybody in Civil War conditions, all because the 9 justices, not all of them, but these justices who have not many cases to look at every year, not that much work to do, a huge staff, great protection, simply do not want to do their job and interpret what the great 14th Amendment means.
Okay, so what's he saying here? He's talking about the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment says that if you try to overthrow the government, you can't run for office again. Okay, and so the Democrats have been saying before they tried to throw Trump in prison for all sorts of other reasons, and before ultimately they tried to kill him. One argument they were making was that Trump is just disqualified. He can't even run again because he did an insurrection on January 6th. And courts have heard this argument, and it's obviously totally bogus. And so the courts didn't give Raskin the answer that he wanted. The courts refused to disqualify the leading presidential contender in the United States. And so Raskin says, okay, well, we're going to disqualify him. I don't care if Trump wins. He's not qualified to run for president. So we're not going to certify the election results. And at this point, when you're hearing this, your head must be exploding if you're an even semi-reasonable person, because you're saying, hold on. The Democrats have just spent 3-4 years whining about how, or 3 years, I suppose, whining about how the Republicans refuse to certify the election and how that's a threat to democracy and how that constitutes an insurrection and how they need to go to jail because of it. But now Democrats are threatening to do the very same thing they accuse the Republicans of. This is hypocrisy. Hypocrisy. Do they not understand the hypocrisy? Imagine if the shoe were on the other foot. Calm down. They don't care. They don't care. For these people, for people like Jamie Raskin, for the libs who have bellowed until they're blue in the face about January 6th, the worst day in history, for these people, democracy is when they win. And fascism is when they lose. And that's it. So if they win the election, if it seems as though they won the election, if they can plausibly take the election, and you challenge the election, you're the fascist, they're the defenders of democracy. If their opponents win the election, fair and square, uncontroverted, and they don't like that, then somehow you're still the fascist and they're still the defenders of democracy. There's no even rule that applies to everyone here. This guy is talking about how he wants to overturn the election, even if it's a fair election, because the court refused to disqualify the leading presidential contender. They don't care about it. You can talk about, if the shoe were on the other foot, could you imagine the double standard, the hypocrisy? They don't care. And they might get away with it. Look what's going on in Venezuela. In Venezuela, looks as though the socialist government got booted out by the voters. It looks as though the centrist party won. And yet the socialist dictator there is just not going to leave. He's just saying, no, we won, forget about the votes, we're not going to leave. And he might eke out this political victory, not because the people voted for him, but he's just going to stay in power. And do you think that he's going to stay up at night tossing and turning, oh no, the hypocrisy. Oh no, I'm doing what I accuse my opponents of doing. Oh no, boy, no, he doesn't care at all. He's staying in power. That's all that matters to him. That's all that matters to people like Jamie Raskin, and that's all that matters to the liberals who are speaking this way. They just are going to exercise any political power they can, whether it's just or not. Here's a good example of this. Google just had to admit to the House Judiciary Committee, again, more great work from Congressman Jim Jordan. Google had to admit that the autocomplete feature on Google was rigged against Trump. After the very near assassination of Donald Trump, the hair's breadth we came to Trump having his head blown off. If you started, you type in on Google a search, and there will be an autocomplete feature. You type in Donald, it should complete Trump. You type in Kamala, it should complete Harris. And it'll have some suggestions of other searches. Well, according to this document, through counsel, Alphabet, the parent company of Google, admitted to the Committee and Select Subcommittee that after the July 13th assassination attempt on President Trump, predictions for queries about the assassination attempt against former President Trump should have appeared but didn't. So you type it in. Donald Trump, should say assassination should be the first, doesn't come up. The assassination of Trump should fill in, doesn't come up. It seems like all the news, pretty important political news, just got memory hold. Forget about it. We don't want people to know about the assassination. So what's Google's explanation? Alphabet explained that Google Search's autocomplete's built-in protections around political violence were out of date, and that as a result, autocomplete failed to provide relevant results about the attempt on President Trump's life. Alphabet also shared that the company updated these protections once this issue was flagged, and that autocomplete now shows results about the July 13th assassination attempt as reflected in the image below. Okay, so there were built-in protections against autocompleting things about political violence, and so it was just an accident that this important news, quite relevant to the election about Donald Trump, was being censored by Google. Just an accident. Okay. Maybe it was. Do you ever notice, though, that these apparent accidents always favor the left? You know, there's always some explanation for it, but it seems like it always favors the left. Oh, yeah, the Secret Service protection. It just, there was just a big accident. Yeah, it was a bit. Well, I noticed the big accidents never almost result in the Democrats getting their head blown off. It's always the Republicans, it seems, right? Oh, look, it was just what a fluke. COVID was such a fluke. And as a result of this fluke, this crazy accident, all the election rules got changed to favor Democrats. Oopsie daisy, wow. Who could have predicted that? Oh, oops, the Hunter Biden laptop story. Yeah, it was just a fluke. The federal government thought it was Russian disinformation, maybe, even though they now admit that obviously it was not. And then, that the word got from the federal government to big tech, to Twitter and Facebook, and it just said, don't allow people to post this or even privately message this. And, it turned out that the laptop was true, but it was just an accident. We thought it wasn't true, and then it was. It's weird. It's just kind of strange how all the accidents and all the oopsie daisies always favor the left. And they never favor the right. So much so that one begins to wonder whether they're not merely accidents. After the 5,000th oopsie daisy, you start to think maybe there's a little bit of intent there. Now, the left is very good at wielding political power. The right occasionally wields political power, and you're seeing a great example of this in Louisiana right now, as Louisiana governor does something so simple, so basic, would have been completely unobjectionable. No one would have batted an eyelash even 30, 40 years ago. And it's driving the libs crazy. It's that he put the 10 Commandments in public school classrooms. We'll get to that in 1 second. First, though, the DailyWire is about to release its very first theatrical film. From the guys who brought you What is a Woman comes America's Next Great Question, the movie Am I Racist? Only in theaters September 13th. Matt Walsh went undercover in the belly of the DEI beast, surrounded by professional race baiters and diversity grifters. Pre-sale tickets are available August 15th. Watch the trailer now at amiracist.com. My favorite comment yesterday is from Hardboiled Entertainment, who says, why is Harris so stuck on Trump's debate agreement with Sloppy Joe? It's a kind of a funny name for Joe. Whatever happened to being unburdened by what has been? That's so true. Trump agrees to debate Joe Biden. He beats Joe Biden in the debate so bad that Biden drops out of the race. Now Harris wants to swoop in on Joe Biden's debate agreement. But I thought the whole point of the Harris campaign was that we're going to imagine what can be unburdened by what has been. All right, let's imagine about what can be. Let's come to a debate agreement between Kamala and Trump. First, though, let's take a look at what this Louisiana governor's doing. Really, really good stuff. The parents are upset already. The lawsuits are being filed. They don't want the 10 Commandments in their kids' classroom. And here's what the governor of Louisiana has to say.
For the children who may not believe in God and see this in their classroom, or parents who are upset that they may be in their child's classroom, what should they do?
Well, here's what I would say. I think we've forgotten in this country that democracy actually means majority rules. For some kind of way over the last 2 decades or so, for whatever reason, our government has flipped the script, or the people believe that we flipped the script. When you elect people, you're elected by a majority. That majority gets to rule. That does not mean that if you don't like something, you have a right to impose that which the majority likes. And so what I would say to those parents is that if those posters in school and they find them so vulgar, tell the child not to look at it.
I love this. Jeff Landry, absolutely love this answer. Love that accent too. My grandfather came from Baton Rouge. I love that Louisiana accent. He says, look, if for whatever reason you don't like the 10 Commandments, I think most people can agree. 10 Commandments, pretty good. You don't need to be the most Orthodox Christian or Jew. You could be kind of agnostic or even atheist. You can agree with thou shalt not commit murder. Thou shalt not steal. But even if for whatever reason something's going really wrong in your life and you just really hate the 10 Commandments, you want to go home, worship Moloch, worship the devil or something, just tell your kid not to look at it. It's just one little poster in a classroom. Just don't look at it. And I love this answer Because this is the answer the libs give us when they upend every standard and norm and taboo in society. When they put up that rainbow flag in classrooms. They say, oh, if your kid doesn't like it, he doesn't have to look at it. Really, what they want you to do is pledge allegiance to it. Oh, that pride parade? What, you don't like it when a bunch of naked dudes are committing all sorts of obscene, disgusting sexual actions on a float going down Main Street in front of kids? Well, tell your kid not to look at it. Just don't look at it, man. You don't have to. No one's forcing you to look at it. Okay, well, now that's what we're saying about the Ten Commandments. No one's forcing you to look at it. But I think if you can have mile-long parades multiple times per year for weird, gross sex stuff in every major city and many small towns in America, I think we can have a little corner of a classroom for the Ten Commandments. Don't you think? Is that okay? Because, by the way, until recent decades, certainly until the middle of the 20th century, and even a little bit after that, we had this stuff all the time. We had the Bible taught in schools. We had prayer in schools. Until the liberals in the middle of the 20th century on the court decided to try to rewrite American law. If you want to talk about American history, sometimes the libs will try to invoke the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution or the Great American Tradition. They should be very careful invoking the Great American Tradition, because in the Great American Tradition, your kids would be taught the Bible and they would be praying in schools. The Great American Tradition is blasphemy laws throughout the country. The Great American Tradition is blue laws in accordance with Christian tradition. Okay. The notion that we're some secular, downright atheistic country where religion has to be banished from the public square, that is a fantasy that was concocted after the Second World War. That is not real. I mean, maybe perhaps it is real now because the libs have been so effective in imposing it. But this is basic stuff. And you have to ask yourself, if in a classroom where the charge is to teach, we have public education to teach kids, and teaching involves reading, writing, and arithmetic. Teaching involves dates and history and skills, music and art. And teaching also involves, most basically, ethics. Good and bad, right and wrong. If we're no longer allowed to teach, thou shalt not commit murder, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, but we are allowed to teach, and we're actually forced to teach the ethics of the pride movement. Pride, the queen of all vices, is a good thing. The deadliest of the seven deadly sins is a good thing. The pride movement, which makes all sorts of claims about sexual behavior, which are contrary to morals. What political rights do we have? What good is public education? If public education at that point would simply exist to make your kid worse, to make your kid dumber and more wicked, and you wouldn't be allowed to teach him in public school how to be good and smart. So at that point, what's it good? Just get rid of it at that point. Who cares? This is the final test as far as I'm concerned. If you can't have a poster of the Ten Commandments in your classroom, okay, get rid of the classroom then, man. It is good for nothing. Now, speaking of civics education, Nancy Pelosi has just raised a perspective about a new face on Mount Rushmore. So who's on Mount Rushmore now? You got Washington, you got Lincoln, you got Jefferson, you have Teddy Roosevelt, and she wants to add Joe Biden.
So he was in a good place to make whatever decision, the top of his game. Such a consequential president of the United States, a Mount Rushmore kind of president of the United States. Want to know what comes next?
That he belongs up there on Mount Rushmore. Lincoln and Joe Biden.
But you got Teddy Roosevelt up there, and he's wonderful. I don't say take him down, but you can add Biden.
You can add Biden. And she does it with a total straight face. What is this about? Does she really believe this? I like how she says, look, you got Teddy Roosevelt. Why can't? And a fair enough point. I really like Teddy Roosevelt too. I'm not sure if he quite rises to the level of significance as the same as a Washington or a Jefferson or a Lincoln. She says, you got Teddy Roosevelt, you might as well have Biden. Does he rise to that same degree of significance as even a Teddy Roosevelt? No, obviously not. He's one of, if not the worst president in American history. He's totally failed. He, despite begging to run for a second term, was really not permitted to, and no one even thinks he's really the president right now. And then while he's been in office, the economy has suffered. We're beginning to see that quite clearly. The world has gone up into flames. The border has been wide open. We've suffered an invasion that coincides with the worst mass poisoning in American history through the fentanyl crisis. It's just a complete disaster of a presidency. And Nancy Pelosi is actually a pretty smart woman, so she doesn't really think this. What is she doing? She is trying to curry favor with a man that she just stabbed in the back. She and Schumer and the Obamas and the Clintons, they all picked up Joe Biden, the cadaver with whatever little life was left in it, and they just threw it under a bus. And he's furious at them, obviously. She was asked, how's your relationship with Biden? I think her answer was, you got to ask him. I think it's okay. You got to talk to him, though, I guess. But he's so great. He needs to be on Mount Rushmore. The entire establishment media, which had spent weeks as they were trying to get him out of the race, saying that Joe Biden was completely brain dead and incompetent, mocking him and just absolutely humiliating this guy. Then the moment he drops out, they say, oh, he's a great American hero. He should be on Mount Rushmore. And I think Biden thinks, save it. You can stuff it, guys. You just shivved me in the back. Now, there's much more to say, but we'll have to wait until tomorrow. There is no member block, I am being told. The membrum segmentum has been canceled by the producers. Why is that, gentlemen? Okay, we're going to be talking to Mr. Shapiro. Hold on. We're canceling the beautiful membrum segmentum to talk to Ben Shapiro. This is Ben Shapiro's namesake was not even selected as the VP. If Josh Shapiro had been selected, I'd get some Shapiro insight from Ben. But okay, whatever. We're going to Ben. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. See you tomorrow.
Republicans are Nazis. You cannot separate yourselves from the bad white people.
Growing up, I never thought much about race. It never really seemed to matter that much, at least not to me.
Am I racist?
I would really appreciate it if you left.
I'm trying to learn. I'm on this journey.
If I'm going to sort this out, I need to go deeper undercover.
They gonna say I'm racist.
Joining us now is Matt, certified DEI expert.
Here's my certification. And what you're doing is you're stretching out of your whiteness. This is more for you and less for you. Is America inherently racist?
The word inherent is challenging there.
I want to rename the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument.
America is racist to its bones.
So inherently.
Yes, this country is a piece of shit.
White.
Folks.
White.
Trash. White supremacy. White woman. White boy.
Is there a black person around?
There's a black person right here. Does he not exist?
Say I'm racist.
Hi, Robin.
Hi. What's your name?
I'm Matt.
I just had to ask who you are because you have to be careful.
Never be too careful.
They gonna say you racist.
In theaters September 13th, rated PG-13.